Hello, it's Anne, and today it's day 2, and today's topic is about freedom of speech. It's about 10:45 p.m. now, but I do really want to make a video about this before every single piece of information is gone inside my head. So let's start. Have you ever noticed that everything has a limit or an expiry date? Well, let's consider some example. Look around you and see. Okay, your phone, it may break someday in the future or will not work anymore in the future. Pen, yes. Computer, flowers, yes. But then human beings, human civilization, or even the earth will disappear at some point in the future. We just don't know, but we know that everything has an expiry date. But let's use a friendlier word. Everything has a limit, and so does any human right that human beings establish for the good of human beings. Today's human right I want to talk about is freedom of speech. And freedom of speech, yes, it has a limit too. But first, let's find out what is freedom of speech. I did a survey yesterday asking some people on V2, asking them that what they think freedom of speech is. And many people thought at first that freedom of speech is your freedom to say whatever you want about any topic you want without anyone interfere you, without anyone going against you, because it's your freedom. But then I asked them, so is there any limit to freedom of speech? And they thought again and said, oh yes, there is limit in freedom of speech. Now, when saying the phrase freedom of speech, many people would have the same answers as the people that I've just mentioned for you. But when thinking deeply, freedom of speech, your freedom to say anything, has a limit. What's the limit? Well, if you say something really bad, if somebody criticizes somebody else really harshly, well, that's when they get to the limit or to the border of freedom of speech. That's when it's about to be beyond control. Because about freedom of speech, it is for the good of human beings. And you should not violate others' rights, because you have your right and you don't want anyone to violate yours. So your responsibility is to not violate anyone else's right or freedom. In particular, freedom of speech. Because that's just not the purpose of freedom of speech. Because freedom of speech is the right that every individual and community has on earth to speak up their mind and to raise their voice about the topics they think that governments and people should really focus on for a better world, for a better economy, or for the development of their countries. That's the purpose of freedom of speech. When it's being used the wrong way, and when people make bad use or take bad advantage of their freedoms, then that's when it's beyond control. And they should really contain themselves to really pause before talking, before saying anything. Now, people have to respect others' freedom of speech, freedom of opinions. What are some misunderstandings that people have about freedom of speech? Well, I will have this example for you. Okay, listen. Don't worry. I think your dress is not that nice. It's so bad. It looks hideous on you. It's just my opinion. Don't worry about it. It's just an opinion of mine. You have your own side of the story too. How could I know that this dress is your favorite one? It's just my opinion. Don't care about it. Well, after hearing that, what do you think? Is this sentence okay to say after you have or somebody has criticized someone badly? It's just an opinion of mine. Don't worry about it. Never mind. Well, in many cases, it's just my opinion. Would really not make a situation better. 'Cause that's just an excuse to mask your or somebody's bad intentions. Intentions is the key words here. If your intention to say something is bad, then no matter how nice you try to say it, your speech or your sayings will not be as good as when you have your good intention. So remember, good intentions, good speech, and right freedom of speech. But bad intentions, then every word of yours is not so clean. So remember that. It's just an opinion of mine. It must be used positively for upbuilding comments and to suggest others for the better, okay? But what if you have good intentions, but then the problem is that your action seems not so nice? Okay, so many people think that when they talk, when they say something with good intentions, or at least they think that it's good, but the thing that they say out loud, it's not so good. Then that's when it's not really nice. It's not a really right thing to do. For example, okay, you have this opinion, or you have a saying that you want to suggest others to be better, but then you suggest that a bit harshly. You just suggest in a way that seems like criticism, that seems like harassment. That's when your action does not really match with your intentions. It can be acceptable sometimes, but in many cases, people who thought to have good intentions just want to minimize their responsibilities to their actions, to their kind of bad actions with others, or to their speech with others. That is when they have good intentions, but their speech coming out of their mouth is not so clean. That is not the thing that this world wants, okay? For a better world. So now, we've been through a lot of misunderstandings about freedom of speech, and in general, when freedom of speech is being used wrong, it can be really dangerous. It can break one's mental health, can hurt one's feeling for the rest of his or her life. So what can we do about it? We must remember that freedom of speech comes with responsibilities and your duties. Remember, our responsibilities are respecting, but not necessarily have to acknowledge others' opinions, others' expressions. Everyone have their own right to express their opinions, but everyone's have a right not to approve anyone's opinion. Okay. But here, we're humans, and humans are complicated. Humans are so complex that even humans cannot really understand ourselves, let alone AI, artificial intelligence, and robots, because humans are really complicated. People and humans make bad mistakes. People have bad moments all the time. They keep saying bad things to others, and after that, they regret saying that. It's such a bad feeling. I'm sure many of you watching this have experienced that kind of feeling. But what matters? What matters is that you take responsibility of your actions. You acknowledge your mistakes, because humans are allowed to make mistakes, are allowed to make many mistakes. But the important thing is that we learn from our mistakes and not want or not try to repeat it over and over again. We want to learn from it, fix it, and avoid it. Now, let's give you an example. Maybe one day you accidentally spit some bad things to your friends, and after that you regret saying that so much, and you don't know what to do because now your freedom of speech is a bit beyond control. It's too bad. But what matters is that on day 3, you make up with your friends and do something to make up for the bad things that you've just told him or her. That's some simple examples for you, demonstrating that we're humans and we're allowed to make mistakes. But the important thing is we learn from it and we take responsibility of it. So, I want to answer this question in terms of freedom of speech that I've wondered myself for a really long time. But then for this topic, freedom of speech, when I research online, I finally get the answer. And the question is that why do you think, or why are many democracies or democratic country value or highly value their freedom of speech? In particular, you can take the United States as an example. They literally highly value their freedom of speech, people's freedom to speak up, raise their minds, and even protest. Now, in their constitution, they even have an amendment, their first amendment, to have free expressions and free opinions. And they even have a right to protest, to go on the street and fight for what they believe in. What are those importance of those protests? To bring the government's attention to what is right, what they think is right, and what should they do, the governments do, to develop and to aim for a better and fair countries. That's the importance of protests. But really, there are cops around to control the protest when the thing gets too a bit uncontrollable or a bit beyond control. Yeah. But then they highly value those freedom of speech. The reason is because they are democracies. And democracies or democracy countries really need people, or depends on the citizens, on the people to the development of the country. If the people are have immoral, and the people do not have any great ideas or any intentions to develop the country, then democracies kind of fail. But because democracies depend on people for their development, people's voices and perspectives are really important. So in countries like the United States, it is filled with voices and perspectives to develop the countries. They have more options, more choices, and must carefully consider choices and things to do to develop their countries, because voices are everywhere. Even governments don't have the ability the ability to control what the society wants to talk about, like the content of the verbal speech and the written speech shouldn't or cannot be decided by the government themselves. So that's a question that I finally answer myself after a long time, because I sometimes forget my questions and forget what I want to learn about. Yeah, but finally today. I hope you enjoy today's talk, even though that's at some points I tripped. I tripped a lot. My tongue and my throat are not so flexible, and I know that I should practice more. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much, and hope you've learned something today, even if it's just a small thing. Thank you so much. Bye bye.